Let me know if you've rejoined. All right, hopefully I'm back. Who's with me? Hey, Cece. We've got thunderstorms in the area. I don't know if that's messing with my Wi-Fi or what's going on tonight, but yeah, we'll try to get wrapped up here pretty soon. Hey, Lamont. So I'm going to just keep going here, guys. So I was talking about Tropical America's opening in 2027. That's probably going to be the first new land that opens up, I'm guessing. And then after that, it's probably going to be, if I were to guess, it might be Monsters Inc. next, and then Cars Land, and then Villains would be the last one that wraps up. The new nighttime parade starts July 20th at Magic Kingdom, the Disney Starlight Parade. So if you're lucky enough to be there that week, you're going to get the new nighttime parade on the 20th at Magic Kingdom, and then 2 days later, you're going to get Test Track opening up at Epcot. So very exciting time there. I mentioned Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith is closing for good in 2026. Reopening in 2026 will be Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. So no time for sure. No problem, JJ. Cooking dinner, awesome. I'll be right over. No time frame exactly of how long it's going to take them to flip it, if you will, from Aerosmith to the Muppets. My assumption is, based on it saying that it's closing and reopening in 2026. Hey, Renee, welcome in. Is that it's solely rethemed, that they're not doing anything with the track itself. They're not doing anything with the ride cars, maybe fine tune some maintenance stuff. I don't imagine that they're tearing the track out and putting in new tracks. So keep that in mind. If you didn't know this, Rock and Roller Coaster as it exists today, the roller coaster was built and then they built the building around it. So you can imagine how easy or how much easier it is or would be to build the track in open space as opposed to today having to tear it out and run it through some garage doors or something and then bring equipment and stuff through garage doors to build a new track. So my guess is that the track is going to stay the same. Okay, I wanted to talk about the new service that started earlier this year for guests at value resorts that are flying on Southwest Airlines. So specifically, you have to be flying Southwest and you have to be staying at a value resort, whether it's one of the three All-Stars or Pop Century or Art of Animation. We were just at All-Star Sports a few weeks ago. We flew on Southwest Airlines. Flying to Orlando, you check your luggage at the ticket gate or wherever at your local airport. They tag it to Orlando. When you land in Orlando, you take the little subway tram train thing over to the main building, go down to luggage carousels, go to the carousel that has your luggage and pull it off, and away you go. With this new service on Southwest at the value resorts, on the day you leave to come home, it's optional. We did it, loved it. First thing that morning, we took all of our luggage down to Bell Services and said, these are the pieces that we are checking. We showed them our boarding passes on our phones, and they tagged all of the luggage, gave us the claim ticket, if you will, and we went on our way for the day. So they took care of all that luggage. They got it to the airport. They got it checked in with Southwest. And when we landed here in Omaha, all of our luggage was here, just as if we'd have checked it in ourselves. This service is, identical to what it used to be like when they had Magical Express. Back then, you could do it coming and going, but now it's at least returning home. Again, Value Resort Southwest Airlines. Loved it. I can't wait to use it again in the future. Slick as could be. They know what they're doing. It's the same company that did it before, so they're very, very adept at it. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with this, and I promised this already. Somebody last week had asked about DVC and how much it costs to be a member, not renting points, but be a member. And so I had promised that I would go do the math and share that information. So if this has interest with you, you might want to grab pen and paper to scribble some of this information down. Otherwise, you can certainly hit me up and I can share information with you. I'll be, as a travel agent, we don't book DVC. We don't sign you up for DVC. That's completely between you and Disney. Same thing with renting renting DVC points. You go through a rental company. We don't do any of that. So what I'm sharing with you here is solely research that I did as a genuine Disney fan and Disney consumer of products, not as a travel agent. So when you go to become a DVC member and you want to get membership, let's first off call it what it is. It's a timeshare. Okay. I mean, in simplest terms, it's a timeshare. You need to first select the number of annual points that you want as part of your package. Now, 100 points is the lowest amount you can do, and then you can do up from there. So if you're wondering what the heck does that mean? There are a number of points utilized for each night stay, and the number of points can fluctuate based on which resort and time of year that you utilize, what type of room request, whether it's a studio or if it's a 2-bedroom, that sort of thing. The number of points will expand or contract. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of, had I been a member at one of these places, what I could have gotten with the points I'm going to illustrate in my example here in a second. So I'm going to kind of jump into my example just for this one purpose. My number is going to be based on me buying into membership with 150 points a year. I say that simply because of my next statement. As a DVC member, you can bank points that you didn't use in a year or borrow from the next year. So for instance, and I'm not going to use examples, but I have 150 points. If we're doing some big family reunion or something, and I want to rent like a 3-bedroom suite at one of the DVC Deluxe resorts, and it's going to cost me far more than the 150 points that I have in my contract per year, I can borrow points from next year. Or if maybe just Lori and I went for a 7-day trip this year and that's all we did, and I've got points left over, those can roll into the next year. So you have flexibility there. Each night, hey, Blake, no worries. Blake, were you the one that asked about DVC membership? If so, that's what I'm talking about right now. So as far as the points go, again, 100 points is the least amount you can do annually, and then you can go up from there. Rental of a room, again, will fluctuate based on if it's a studio, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, the category, if it's a resort view, if it's a preferred view, if it's a theme park view. Any of those things can change the amount of points needed. But on the low end, a one-night stay is typically 14 points. That's 14. On the high end, it could be as many as 128 points per night. Think about that 3-bedroom example that I was using for a family reunion. So depending on what you're renting or what you're staying in, you can consume your annual points pretty dang quickly, or you can use them pretty judiciously. And I'll illustrate that here pretty soon. So I'm going to do 2 different examples. I'm going to use the Polynesian Resort as one example, as if I was going to buy membership. And then I'm going to do the Riviera Resort as another one. The membership that you're buying into, your membership will last. It's a number of years, but it's not at the same at each resort. It's essentially It expires, your membership will expire 50 years from the resort opening date. Okay. So the Polynesian, for instance, if I were buying into it next year in 2026, it would be a 40 membership. Now, the Polynesian Resort's been around much longer than that, but it's based on when it became DVC. The Riviera, for instance, if I were to buy into it next year, its membership started later. So I would be going for 44 years in a membership at Riviera. Okay, so it's probably a lot thrown at you. Let's start with my example. I'm going to buy in 2026 at the Polynesian. I'm going to do 150 points. I think I said that earlier. There is a one-time charge, one-time fee, one-time cost to buy into membership. That amount will fluctuate based on how many points you are buying into, and potentially the resort that you're picking. If I'm doing Aulani, for instance, as my base resort, the price is going to be far different than doing the Polynesian or Riviera or Grand Floridian. But for my example, Polynesian, 150 points, a one-time cost, and this is right now, may change by next year if I was waiting until then, $36,150. I rounded up to 150. $36,150. That's a one-time cost, or I can do financing through Disney, a 15-year loan, 15-year loan. I have to put 10% down, so that's like $3,600. And then my 15-year loan would be $435 per month for 15 years. Once that's paid, if you write a check up front for $36,150, or if you finance it, once that's paid off, you're done paying that. All right. So if I got money laying around and I write a check for $36,150 for the next 40 years, I can go to the Polynesian with my 150 points annually. And I'll give you a couple of examples of how that would work out. But I'm done paying for the membership at that point. Now, there is an annual dues that you pay. The current dues for the Poly for 1 year is $1,190. I rounded it up. It's $1,190, which comes out to be a little bit more than $99 per month. You'll pay that not just for the 15 years, but for the 40 years of my Polynesian example. But if you think about it, so let me finish my thought. My one-time fee of $36,150, and if I were to take the annual fees at $1,189, multiply it out for 40 years, because that's how long my membership is going to last, add those two numbers together, I'm paying $83,730. That's a chunk of money. I'm not going to lie. $83,730. However, I'm going to have my points for 40 years to go to the Polynesian Resort. If I just divide the 83,000 number by 40 years, I'm paying $2,093 per year. Very simple math. Comparative. If I book a 1 week stay at Pop Century, it's about $2,000. Almost the same as what I'm averaging over 40 years for my Polynesian DVC membership. So what the heck does 150 points get me at the Polynesian? If I look at a block of time between September 1st and 30th, I had to pick something. If I did December, it's going to change my numbers. But if I'm a fall person, I'm a Halloween guy, I love Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, all of that. Lori and I could go to the Polynesian for a 3-night stay, weekend stay, 36 points. I could then go with 5 of us, say me, Lori, Tyler, Kennedy, and Briggs, once he's 3. I could go 5 of us for 7 nights, and that would cost me 104 points. So That combined with the 3-day weekend for Lori and I, it's 140 points. I still have 10 points to roll over to next year. But I would be getting a 3-day weekend stay at the Poly, and I'd be getting a week-long stay at the Poly for my 150 points. If you have the money to invest in the timeshare, the DVC membership, and you have the interest in being able to go year over year for the next 40 years, it is a far better deal economically. Like I said, I could go to the Pop Century Resort, very nice value resort, for about $2,000 for a week, for an average of less than $2,100 per year. I would be able to go to the Polynesian Resort 7+ days. So when you compare those two, doing it that way, DVC makes a lot of sense. Totally makes a lot of sense. Now, here are the challenges in my mind. The annual dues that I said was $1,190. It's $1,189.50 right now. That can and typically will go up year over year. How much? That's a variable, but keep that in mind that fixed $1,190 number for annual dues may climb each year a certain amount. But once you've paid that one-time charge, the $36,150, whether you write one check or you finance it over 15 years, once that's paid off, all you have are the annual dues for the rest of your contract. The contract, like I said in my example for Poly, is 40 years. I'd love to tell you I'm going to live for another 40 years, but I can gift my membership to a family member. So if I were to buy in today so that I could take my family to Disney and stay at the Poly, in my example, annually, I could break it apart and do a 4-night stay and bring part of the kid, some of my boys and their spouses, and then another 4-night stay with the others. And every year they get to go. And then at some point down the road, I gift that to them, and then they carry it on for the remaining time. That's something optional that can happen. Here's where I'm at mentally on this. And I'm not a proponent or an opponent for DVC membership. I just try to be somewhat logical in the thought process. Financially, it's simple in the sense that if I could go for the next 40 years at an average cost of $2,100 a year for 40 years, and I'm just doing simple math, that's cheaper than $2,000 at the Pop Century. My complications are this. One, do I want to go to Disney every year for the next 40 years? Let's assume I was young enough to be around for 40 years. Do I want to do that every year? Maybe, but what if there are years where I'm like, you know what? We want to go somewhere else. We want to do something else. We want to go to the Lake of the Ozarks. We want to go to Cancun. We want to go to a fishing trip in Minnesota or whatever it may be. Yeah, I'm getting frozen next to Walt. That's one complication. The other is, for me personally, even though these numbers financially make sense, I still got to fly there every time I go. And so that's an added expense. The third comment I would make about this is the same comment I make when people ask me about buying an annual pass. I look at the annual pass this way. Financially, it makes sense. I can go as many times as I want, and after I've gone 12 days, it's paid for. The problem is, and this is what I tell people, if you're going to buy the annual pass, if you're going to do DVC, you essentially have to be willing to say, I'm willing to walk away from that money. I always give two examples, I think, with the annual pass. Had I bought one a year ago, January, I had a heart attack in February. I had surgery in March. I didn't know at that point in time if I'd ever be able to get back to Disney. That unknown of something like that happening, and I bought the annual pass. If I couldn't use it, I walk away from that money. Likewise, you buy the annual pass, and a month or two later, you lose your job for whatever reason. You probably can't afford to go back down to Disney. So that's why I say you have to be willing to walk away from that money. DVC, the numbers part of it, makes absolute sense that it becomes a, a a steal, if you will. Once you've paid that initial lump of 36,000 and change, only paying 1,100 and whatever, or $1,200 a year for dues after that for the next. I mean, if you financed it for the 15 years, you still have 25 more years after that of getting the benefit of 10 nights at the Poly annually, roughly, for just the dues of $1,200 a month, or $1,200 a year. Sorry. I'm going to try, if I can figure out how, I'm going to try to put this in writing and maybe post it in our Discord so that people have it. Again, booking, joining, none of those things do me anything as a travel agent. I'm just sharing this because if it's an experience and an option for your family to maximize what you can get out of Disney, then I'm happy for you. JJ, so typically, yes, I would agree with you, but I'll use Briggs as the example. You could easily say, well, you'd want to take Briggs to Disney every year. And by golly, you're right. But when he turns 8 or 9, if he's playing baseball and travel baseball, and we're going to tournaments 2, 3, 4 times throughout the summer to different places, it may not be in the cards to go to Disney that year, either because we're out of vacation time for all of the baseball trips, or financially we just can't swing it because of all of the hotel and food expenses from being at out-of-town tournaments. Things like that you, when they're 2 years old, or he's not even 2 yet, you don't really think about. But those are the things always, in this wheel that sometimes sounds like it needs to be oiled, are thinking about those different facets. But yeah, I'd love to go to Disney every single year. You better believe it. The time commitment, you're right. You're right, Ronnie. Now, I will say this. You can see, Troy, bingo. I coached competitive select baseball for 22 years. My youngest son, I took that team out of town every year to a different state. We went to, as 8-year-olds, we went to Iowa, so it was just a couple hour drive. The next year we went to Chicago. We went to Denver. We went to the Wisconsin Dells. We went to Cooperstown in New York. We went to Sandusky, Ohio, just outside of Cleveland. And then we went to Louisville, Kentucky, got to tour the Louisville Slugger plant where they make wood bats. Amazing experiences. I would never trade those, ever, ever, ever. Hey, Project Loop, how are you? Welcome in. But yeah, the time commitment, part of that, Ryan, you're exactly right. Now, what I was going to say is there are options to utilize your DVC points for some destinations that are not necessarily Disney World, Disneyland, or Aulani. There's resorts, I think, in South Carolina, Hilton Head, places like that you can utilize points. So there are some non-traditional Disney destinations you can go to, but I think most people that buy into DVC are doing so because they want to go to Disney World. You can also use your points, I believe, for Disney cruises as an option as well. But JJ, I'm coming back to you because I thought about this. Honestly, doing this math was probably the worst thing ever for me, because as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this, I'm like going, we should do this. I'm not going to be around for 40 more years, but we could hand it over to the boys and they can enjoy it for the next, however many years once we're gone, or unable to go anymore, whatever the case may be. But man, when I started doing the numbers, I'm like, wait a minute, I could do a 3-night stay with just me and Lori over the weekend at the Poly. And then I could do a 7-night stay with 5 of us at the Poly for these numbers. It's a heck of a deal. DVC certainly is much more affordable in the long term, especially if you're a deluxe resort person. Now, I use Pop Century as my example, and you could see how comparable that is. Pop Century is $225 a night, roughly. You're not getting the Poly or Grand Floridian or Riviera for $225 a night if you're just going there for a vacation. You're paying $800, $1,000, $1,200. So when you then do the math that way versus DVC, DVC is absolutely the way to go. Understanding, though, that You write them a check for $36,000 and something happens and you have to essentially walk away from your membership, you're out that money. They don't say, oh, well, you used it for 10 of the 40 years, so we're going to refund you 75%. You're walking away. You have to be willing to do that. Same thing with the annual pass. Like I said, they're great benefits. Financially, they make a lot of sense, but you have to be willing to walk away from that money if something catastrophic happens that you did not expect or plan for. I did do the numbers for Riviera. It's $3 cheaper for the total buy-in, although the dues are more expensive. Newer resort costs a little bit more for upkeep, maybe, or something. I don't know, but the dues are more. They were like $1,360. Riviera is a newer resort, and so while your buy-in amount is the same as it was for Poly, you're getting 44 years of a membership at the Riviera as opposed to 40 years at the Poly. So